Everyone in Yumua village believed Abeni was cursed. On the day she was born, rain fell under a hot sun. Thunder spoke without clouds. And before her mother could even hold her, the old midwife whispered, "This child carries tears in her destiny." From that day, people watched Abeni like they were waiting for something bad to happen. She grew up quiet, gentle, and too kind for a world that did not understand her. Her father died when she was 5. Her mother followed 3 years later after a long sickness. At 8 years old, Abeni became an orphan. No one wanted her. Relatives pushed her from one house to another like a burden nobody ordered. Some fed her leftovers. Some beat her for mistakes she did not make. Others reminded her every day that she was not wanted. Still, Abeni never complained. Every morning before the sun rose, she swept the compound. She fetched water from the stream. She washed plates, cooked food, and cared for children who were not hers. At night, when everyone slept, she sat outside and looked at the stars. That was when she smiled the most. "Maybe my mother is one of those stars," she often whispered. One evening, while returning from the stream, Abeni saw an old woman sitting by the roadside. Her wrapper was torn. Her feet were dusty. Her eyes looked tired, like someone who had cried for many nights. "Please," the woman said weakly, "I have not eaten since morning." Abeni looked at the small bowl of curry she was carrying home. It was all she would eat that night. If she returned without it, punishment was waiting. She hesitated. Then she remembered her mother's voice. "Kindness never wastes, my child." Abeni poured the curry into the old woman's hands and added her only piece of groundnut. The woman ate slowly, tears dropping into her palms. "Why are you kind to me?" she asked. Abeni shrugged. "Because hunger hurts." The old woman smiled strangely and said, "One day, your kindness will speak louder than your suffering." Then she stood up and walked away. The next morning, something unusual happened. Abeni woke up to find a golden ring beside where she slept. Nobody in the house claimed it. They accused her of stealing it and beat her badly. Bleeding and in pain, Abeni ran away from the house that day. She walked without direction, crying until her eyes burned. By evening, she collapsed near a cocoa farm and slept. When she woke up, a kind farmer and his wife were standing over her. They listened to her story and decided to help her. Abeni stayed with them. She worked hard, just as she always had, but this time, she was treated with love. The farmer noticed something special about her. Wherever Abeni walked, crops grew better. Sick animals recovered. Peace filled the home. Years passed. One season, the king of a nearby town announced a great search. His only son had fallen mysteriously ill. No healer could cure him. The king promised great reward to anyone who could help. The farmer encouraged Abeni to go. "But I know nothing about healing," she said. "Go with your heart," the farmer replied. At the palace, many healers failed. When Abeni entered the room, the prince suddenly opened his eyes. She did nothing special. She only held his hand and spoke gently, the same way she used to speak to crying children. By morning, the prince was sitting up. The palace was filled with shouts of joy. The king asked Abeni who she was and where she came from. As she spoke, the golden ring she had kept since childhood slipped from her finger and fell to the floor. The king froze. "That ring," he whispered. "It belongs to the queen of the forest." At that moment, the old woman Abeni fed years ago appeared in the palace, no longer weak or dirty, but glowing with power. She was the queen of the forest indeed. "This child showed kindness when the world showed her cruelty," the queen said. "So I blessed her path." The king adopted Abeni as his daughter. The village that once called her cursed now bowed before her. But Abeni never returned with pride. She returned with forgiveness. She built homes for orphans. She fed the hungry. She reminded everyone that a good heart can change destiny. And from that day, mothers in Yumua village told their children, "Be kind. You never know who you are feeding or who you are becoming." The story did not end there. Fame came to Abeni like a sudden wind, but she held it gently, the way one holds a fragile calabash. Even as the king dressed her in fine clothes and gold, she still woke before sunrise. She still swept her room herself. She still greeted palace workers by name. People wondered why a girl who had suffered so much did not become proud. But Abeni remembered hunger. She remembered tears. She remembered the nights when the stars were her only friends. One night, she dreamed. In the dream, she stood again by the roadside, holding a bowl of gari. The queen of the forest appeared, her voice soft but heavy with meaning. Kindness opened your door, the queen said, but wisdom must keep it open. A test is coming. Abeni woke up shaking. Not long after, the test arrived. A severe drought hit the land. Rivers dried up. Crops withered. Hunger returned, this time not only to the poor, but to the rich as well. Villages began to fight over food. Even the palace storehouses started to empty. The king called for advice. Many elders spoke. Many plans failed. Then all eyes turned to Abeni. She stood slowly and said, "When I was hungry, one small bowl saved me. Let us not wait for abundance before we share." She suggested something simple. Every household, including the palace, would contribute a little food daily. It would be cooked and shared openly, with no favoritism. Strong people would farm together. The weak would be fed first. Some laughed. Some doubted. But the king trusted her. Days passed. Weeks passed. Something strange happened. The little food never finished. No matter how small the contributions were, the pots never went empty. People ate and still found leftovers. Children laughed again. Quarrels stopped. The elders whispered among themselves. This is not ordinary wisdom. Then one afternoon, Abeni heard crying outside the palace gate. A dirty, thin boy stood there, shaking. He was being chased away by guards. Abeni rushed out. "What is your name?" she asked. "Kola," the boy said. "I ran from Yumua village. They say I bring bad luck. My parents are dead." Abeni's heart broke. She saw herself in him. She took Kola by the hand and brought him inside. When she asked where in Yumua he lived, something inside her shifted. She recognized the compound. The same one where she had been beaten. The same one she had run from years ago. That night, Abeni could not sleep. By morning, she made a decision. She asked the king for permission to return to Yumua village not as a princess, but as a daughter of the soil. When she arrived, the village gathered in fear and shame. Some recognized her. Some lowered their heads. Abeni stood before them calmly. "I did not come for revenge," she said. "I came because hunger has no enemy, and kindness has no tribe." She rebuilt the old well. She opened a small school. She left food and seeds behind. Before she left, the woman who once beat her knelt and cried. "Forgive us," she begged. Abeni lifted her up. "Forgiveness is how I survived," she said. As Abeni walked away, rain began to fall. Soft. Gentle. Healing. The same village that once called her cursed now called her blessing. And long after Abeni became queen in her own right, long after songs were sung about her name, one truth remained stronger than all the magic. She did not change the world because she was chosen. She was chosen because she never let the world change her heart. Years passed, but the story of Abeni did not fade. It grew. Children sang her name while jumping rope. Old men told her story by firelight. Mothers used her life to teach their daughters that gentleness was not weakness. But destiny was not done with Abeni yet. One season, traders from distant lands arrived with sweet words and sharp eyes. They praised the kingdom, admired its peace, and bowed deeply before the king. But behind their smiles was greed. They noticed something. Where other lands were starving, this kingdom flourished. Where others fought, this one shared. They wanted the secret. Quietly, they began to whisper lies. They told the king's advisors, Abeni is using charms. No ordinary person brings abundance during drought. They told the people, she is favored by spirits, not by wisdom. They told the prince, now grown, be careful. Love can blind a ruler. Slow poison spreads best when it is slow. Soon, doubt entered hearts. One night, the king fell seriously ill. Fear filled the palace. Before dawn, rumors spread like fire. Abeni has turned against the throne. Guards were sent to bring her in chains. As they dragged her through the palace courtyard, people watched in silence. The same people who once praised her now looked away. Abeni did not fight. She did not cry. She only whispered, truth walks slowly, but it never gets lost. She was locked in a small hut outside the city, the same kind of hut orphans were once kept in. That night, rain refused to fall. Wind refused to blow. Even the forest became quiet. At midnight, the queen of the forest appeared again. My child, she said gently, this time, no magic will save you. Only the hearts you have touched will speak. Morning came. The king's sickness grew worse. The healers failed again. Panic filled the land. Then something unexpected happened. People began to gather outside the hut where Abeni was kept. First came the farmer who once sheltered her. Then the children she fed. Then the mothers whose homes she rebuilt. Then strangers from villages she had helped and never returned to thank. They stood in numbers too many to count. We will not leave, they said. If she is guilty, then we are guilty too. The prince, troubled in his heart, ordered Abeni brought before him. When she entered, the king opened his eyes for the first time in days. Abeni, he whispered. Tears rolled down his face. The lies were exposed. The traders were arrested. Shame filled the palace. The king rose from his bed and removed his crown. I ruled with power, he said, placing it on Abeni's head, but you ruled with love. The people wept openly. Abeni did not smile in victory. She looked at the crowd and said softly, never destroy what you do not understand. Never punish kindness because it is quiet. Under her reign, laws changed. Orphans were protected. The hungry were fed first. Leaders were chosen by service, not by blood. And when Abeni finally died many years later, the forest itself mourned. Trees bent low. Birds went silent. Rain fell like tears. But her story did not die. Because whenever someone chooses kindness over cruelty, whenever a stranger is fed, whenever forgiveness defeats revenge, Abeni lives again. After Abeni's burial, something strange began to happen. People said her spirit did not leave the land. On quiet evenings, when the sun melted into the earth, travelers claimed they saw a young woman walking barefoot along the old roads, greeting strangers with a smile. Wherever she passed, tired hearts felt lighter. Hungry children found food. Quarreling families found peace. The elders called it imagination. But the land told another story. Years later, a proud ruler rose in a neighboring kingdom. He ruled with fear, not love. Taxes were heavy. Orphans slept in the streets. The rich grew richer while the poor disappeared quietly. One day, a small girl named Sod collapsed in the marketplace. She had not eaten for 2 days. People stepped over her. Some looked away. Others complained she was disturbing business. Then an old woman appeared. She wore simple cloth. Her feet were dusty. Her eyes were kind. She lifted Sod gently and bought her food with the last coins in her hand. She washed the girl's face and held her until she stopped shaking. Why are you helping me? Sod asked weakly. The woman smiled. Because the world survives on people who choose to care. That night, Sod dreamed of Abeni, even though she had never heard the name. In the dream, Abeni said, kindness is a seed. Plant it wherever you go. Sod grew up. She became strong, wise, and fearless. She spoke for children who had no voice. She fed the hungry with what little she had. When people mocked her, she remembered the dream. Years later, when the cruel king died, the people chose Sod to lead them. History repeated itself. Not because magic forced it, but because kindness was taught. And so the story continued, moving from one heart to another, from one generation to the next. That is why, even today, in many African villages, elders still say, Abeni did not die. She became a lesson. And whenever a child shares food instead of keeping it, whenever forgiveness wins over anger, whenever love chooses to stay, the spirit of Abeni walks again. But one final chapter of the story was yet to be told. Long after Sod became queen, during a season when the moon stayed full for 7 nights, an old grot arrived at the palace. His back was bent with age, his voice rough like dry leaves, but his eyes were sharp with memory. He asked for only one thing. Allow me to tell the story that was never finished. That night, the people gathered. Fires burned. Drums rested. Silence listened. The griot spoke. When Abeni forgave Yumua village, she left something behind that no one noticed, he said. Not gold. Not magic. A promise. He pointed toward the forest. On the night she died, Abeni returned there one last time. She knelt on the earth and prayed, not for herself, but for the future. The griot closed his eyes and repeated the prayer as it had been passed down in whispers. Let no child believe they are useless. Let no hungry hand remain unseen. Let kindness always find a way back home. As the last words left his mouth, wind rushed through the trees. Flames danced without burning. The full moon dimmed, then shone brighter. People felt it. Something ancient. Something gentle. From that day, a tradition was born. Every year, on the same night, villages across the land placed a bowl of food outside their homes, not for spirits, not for fear, but in remembrance. Any stranger could eat. Any child could take. No questions asked. They called it the night of open hands. And something beautiful happened. Enemies shared meals. Broken families talked again. Forgotten people were remembered. Children grew up knowing this truth. That destiny is not written by curses. That greatness does not shout. That the smallest kindness can echo across generations. So if one day you are tired, if the world feels cruel, if you think your goodness is invisible, remember Abeni. She was unwanted. She was blamed. She was broken. And yet, she became a light so strong that even death could not put it out. Because in Africa, stories do not end. They walk. They breathe. They wait for someone like you to continue them. They end.